welcome to our 20th annual Hike for Hospice. For 2 decades, we have been coming together in person or virtually to remember and honor loved ones who are living with a life-threatening illness, those who died, and for those who are grieving. While we are all hiking on our own, we would like to acknowledge most hikes are taking place in Nogojivanong, the place at the foot of the rapids. We acknowledge that this place is the land and territory of the Anishinaabe people. We gather with gratitude to our Mississauga neighbors. We say miigwech to thank them and other Aboriginal peoples for taking care of this land from time immemorial and for sharing this land with those of us who are newcomers. Out of that gratitude, we are called to treat the land, its plants, animals, stories, and its peoples with honor and respect.
Hello, I'm Mary Blair, and on behalf of the Hike for Hospice Committee, I wish to extend you my warmest welcome. Our goal for our 20th Hike for Hospice is to create a sense of connection and community while raising much needed funds for our hospice programs and services. Despite not being able to hike together again this year, we hope these opening ceremonies give you a sense of connectiveness to other hikers across Peterborough and surrounding areas, and to the person or people you are hiking in honor of and remembering through Hike for Hospice. With demand for hospice services increasing over 40% in the past 5 years, and grief and bereavement becoming more complicated through COVID-19, your ongoing support has allowed us to continue to be there for our friends, neighbors, and community. We are also incredibly grateful to our sponsors who came out in record numbers to show their support for Hike for Hospice. Thank you to our media sponsors, Pure Country 105 and Move 99.7. Our Hope sponsors, Karen Justque, Century 21, Tuckasee Ranch, LLF Lawyers, Westmount Pharmacy, Bowden and Associates, Tim Hortons, Lakefield Foodland, Aon Inc., our comfort sponsors, Merit Precision, Wound Closure Clinic, the Peterborough Clinic.
Thanks to our care sponsors, Kawartha Orthodontics, Grant Thornton, Avon Garden, Peterborough Volkswagen, Charlotte Paint and Wallpaper, John Roberts, Monaghan Lumber, Nuttall and Associates, the Stewart Family Foundation, Rambling Rose, Catherine and Dave Johnston, RBCDS, Swish Maintenance, Hydro One, and Cora Peterborough. And to our support sponsors, your Community Advantage Team Century 21, Higgins Chiropractic, Shop the Lake, Bennett's Home Furnishing, Living Well Home Medical Equipment, George Ripple BMO Private Wealth, 2032 Dentistry, Green Eyewear, Christine Hines and Sylvia James, Royal LePage. Oh my goodness, that's a list. I would also like to acknowledge our amazing committee of dedicated volunteers who give their time and expertise to this event. Co-chairs Mary Blair and Heather Eatson, Michelle Kavanagh, Karen Miller, Michelle Chalmer, Tracy Blair, Leslie Keating, and Lynn Borland. Woo!
Very good. Thank you, Hoynie. Thank you. We would now like to turn it over to our supportive care counselor, Red Keating, for our opening ceremonies.
Well, thank you. This is my first time addressing hospice as sort of a formal, taking the shoes of David Kennedy and Julie Brown and being the sort of spokesperson or the person who I think is meant to kind of reflect on the day, reflect on the process of hiking, and reflect on living with a life-threatening illness or living through grief. So it's a real honor to do this today. And in typical fashion, I'm going to start with a song. I was walking when this came to me, so this is really interesting. I'm going to just read some lyrics from a song by Laurie Anderson, if anybody knows her. She's a wonderful musician, storyteller, and the song is called Walking and Falling. And it's only a 2-minute song, and it says, I wanted you, and I was looking for you, but I couldn't find you. I wanted you, and I was looking for you all day, and I couldn't find you. You're walking, and you don't realize it, but you're always falling. With each step, you fall forward slightly, and then catch yourself from falling. Over and over, you're falling, and then catching yourself from falling. And this is how you can be walking and falling at the same time. And as I was walking, those lyrics came to mind. And then, of course, I thought of babies, which makes sense. But babies are these little things that come into a new world. They're transitioning from one place that's very safe and comfortable to another space that's very bright and somewhat scary and frightening. And I thought about walking and hiking then as a metaphor for living with grief or living with a life-threatening illness. And I thought about babies learning to walk. And babies have to do a lot before they can walk. They first have to hold their head up on their own, right? Then they have to learn how to roll over and then sit up and crawl and stand and eventually walk, and then maybe someday eventually run. But they don't do it on their own. Right? They do it with their persistence, and they do it with their drive to continue to move forward, which is sort of walking from one place to another. But they don't do it without a whole lot of help from the people around them. Their family, their mom, their dad, grandparents, brothers, sisters, and any friends and families who might be engaged in that little person's life. And it takes a lot of patience, and it takes a lot of persistence to find their way in this new world. And so if you've been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, that changes the world. It's a new world from the moment that diagnosis comes down. It's an unfamiliar world, and it's a world that you have to learn how to renegotiate. And it's the same if you're grieving. If you've lost a loved one to death, then it's a brand new world. It's a different world, and it's an unfamiliar world, and it can feel like a scary world. But we keep walking, And those diagnoses and maybe those deaths feel like we're falling. We can often feel like we're falling. We're not in control anymore. But we keep moving forward. We catch ourselves from falling, and we take the next step. We take that risk to fall again and catch ourselves from falling. And so walking as a transition and hiking as a metaphor for our grief and living with a life-threatening illness becomes really, in my mind, in that moment, quite poignant. And then I thought, geez, walking is a slow venture. I could be riding my bike. I could be driving a car. And I'd get to where I'm going a heck of a lot faster, right? So then there's something important about walking. We don't get to drive a sports car through our grief. We don't get to drive, a fast sports car through living with a life-threatening illness. And I mean, as we came here this morning, if you're driving down the highway, you can drive through this park. It's not a problem. But you won't experience it in the same way as when you're walking it, and your feet are on the ground, and you can hear the birds and the bugs, and you're going to go from sunlight to shade. You're going to see things in the woods that you wouldn't see if you're just sort of really trying to speed through life in a sports car. And so walking and hiking became really important because there's something we're to learn in that process. Our feet are supposed to be on the ground when our lives have been turned upside down by a life-threatening illness or grief. And so the concept of walking becomes really important because it's a slow journey. Babies teach us we have to be patient. It's a patient journey. And it's a journey that needs a lot of support from those around us to get through. And so as we sort of get ready to do our hike for hospice this year, 20th anniversary, that's kind of neat. And as we're living through this process, let's remember that the walk is important. The time we take is important. The kindness we show ourselves is important as we're moving our lives through this new world. And so as you're walking for hospice, as we're hiking today, let's hold those people in our hearts. We might know someone who's just been diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, or we clearly will know someone who has gone before us and died, and we hold those people in our hearts. And so let's just take that step, and let's fall and catch ourselves from falling, and just keep walking forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Red.
We wish you all a wonderful week for Hike for Hospice. We wish you peace and health, and once again, on behalf of the Hike for Hospice Committee and all of us at Hospice Peterborough, thank you for being part of our 20th hike anniversary.
Thank you and happy hiking!
Happy hiking!